Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is going to be a little bit different video today. I'm actually going to do a review on my own piece of machinery, which is this 14-inch DIY bandsaw. Now, I didn't design this bandsaw. This particular person right here on this YouTube channel is the person that designed this, and I actually bought the plans from him. I believe he's in Brazil or Spain. The plans were like 20 pesos, something like that. And if you would like to purchase these, you can go to his YouTube channel. I will link that in the pinned comment below. Now, I did mention this is a 14-inch bandsaw, so let's see exactly how much room we have between the shield here and the blade, and that's about 13.5 inches. One other thing I want to point out about this bandsaw is that the table also tilts on it. I don't really use it like this very much, but you have to take the insert out or make another insert. And there's some knobs underneath here that actually get in the way. Like I said, I've never used it like this, but there is a stop on this side that you hold it down against, and then there's adjustment back here on the back. It's just a big knob like this and a banana slot, and it's hinged about right in here so that the blade, the center point, is about right in here where it tilts. So that was already figured out because that was in the plans when I purchased it. So thought I'd let you know that the table does tilt on this. And the wheel, both wheels are 14-inch in diameter. So that makes it a 14-inch bandsaw. This gauge, or this guard, could be moved back a little bit and give me a little bit more room in here, but this has not been a limitation at all, really, with this saw. The main reason that I built this was to do resawing and also cut circles. So I have a circle cutting jig that I will go over, and also a fence that's kind of a Beezer-Meyer kind of setup that attaches to the table here. Overall, the table is 20 by 20, and it takes a 99 3/4 inch blade. I have run different size blades on this bandsaw before. This is actually a 1/2 inch thick blade, and that's from the back of the blade to the tip of the tooth there. That's 1/2 inch. I believe that one is about three teeth per inch. I've run a 3/8 inch fine tooth. As you can see that there, this blade needs to be cleaned. So there's that one. Then I have a 1/4 inch that's kind of fine tooth as well. You can see that there. And I'm going to put this one, install this one when we do the demo on the circle jig. The rest of these are the 3/8 and the 1/2 inch. The circle jig will not work very well with that blade installed. Right now there is a 3/8 inch Morse brand, and that is this guy right here. I get these on Amazon. These are $28 for a pack, and there's 2 blades in each pack. And that's what's installed here, and it is super sharp. So I will be buying this brand from now on. I had been buying this brand, and you can get some specs off of that if you want. These are also from Amazon. That kind of give you some measurements there to go by. This particular brand did okay, but after you resaw a little bit of oak, and it doesn't matter, you know, when I say resaw, I'm talking maybe a 3.5 inch tall piece. I ran into a couple nails that were hidden in some scrap wood from pallets, and it doesn't hold up to that. I'm pretty sure none of these probably would either. But I am switching over to the Morse brand, and I'm gonna buy those moving forward. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I installed and built this box. I believe that video came out last week, and I've used this quite a bit since adding this, and again, it works perfectly. I could not ask for something better. But then it has, of course, a lower wheel down here. The original plan for this bandsaw, the motor was not underneath. I have redesigned the stand and moved the motor. I wanted a much larger, powerful motor since I was going to do mainly resawing with this. So the motor is mounted, like I said, on the stand here underneath, and it has a long belt on the back side. I would turn this around. This does weigh quite a bit. I would say probably around 180 pounds or so. Most of that weight is the motor, although this main structure right here is a lot of the weight as well. So, like I said, I purchased these prints, and it had a SketchUp model, and that was about it. It didn't really have a page of every part that I was going to have to cut out, so I basically went in there, made a copy of it in SketchUp, and laid out all those parts, did some dimensions on those, and then did a snapshot of it. And as I printed those out, I numbered the parts based on his parts list that he did include in the prints that came with it. He also had a materials list as far as everything was in metric too, and it was really not that hard. You just have to make sure all your measurements are in metric. So it does use a 20 millimeter shaft for the wheels, and then I made the pulleys and everything for the belt drive. I did purchase a pulley for the motor. It's a pretty small one, probably about 2.5 inches or something like that. Now, when this thing starts up, it does squeal quite a bit. There's a lot of mass to get rolling, and so with that small wheel on the bottom, it does screech a little bit when you start it up. I've never really tested the RPMs of this. It does, to me, seem like it's running a little bit fast. It muscles through anything that you put up against that blade. So I've bogged it down a little bit, cutting out some shapes, some curves with this particular blade on here. And if you get that blade in a bind, you will slow the saw up quite a bit. But as far as resawing goes, it muscles right on through any material you put up against that blade. And also in the original prints, the fence system that he had was a little bit different than this. And I didn't have a fence on it for quite some time. I would just clamp a straight edge on here if I was going to resaw something. And finally one Saturday, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a proper fence for this. And so I came up with this. It's a little bit like tapered, but it has a clamp system on here, and then there's just this rail right here. So you slide it on, and then when you clamp it down, it's basically pinching this straight piece that runs across, and it does deflect a little bit. It's plywood, I mean, you know, and that's mainly this piece that's moving, not this piece here bending. I'm telling you, man, It is square as it can be off of the tabletop. While we're talking about squareness, the blade is actually perpendicular as well. I don't know if we can see that on camera. All right, you can see that there. I might need to adjust the guides a little bit. There's a little bit of a gap at the top, but not very much. Maybe a 1/28 or so. We're resawing basically with this in this orientation, and we're going to run this through the planer anyways. And if you're brave enough, you can get pretty thin here. This is hard maple that I sliced these up to make some edge banding for the camper, and then I heated these with an iron and formed those for some edge banding. Matter of fact, here's a little video clip of when I was actually making that. I never did turn that into a proper video, but you can see here the jig that I used and the glue up, and that turned out really well. I think if you actually go into my update video on our camper, which is a 88 Airstream 29-foot Excella, I talk about the flip counter extension that is in that video as well, and this is the leftover banding from that project. All right, I've tracked down this piece of pine that has a pith in it, and it's actually bowed this way, so I'm going to run it with the bow going over like this. So we're going to start the dust collection, and then I'll start the, actually let me start the saw. So I'll turn this volume down a little bit because this is pretty loud. So once it gets up to speed, the squealing goes away. So, and here's the dust collection. So we're cutting about maybe a 1-inch raw thickness. Well, as you can see there, it goes right through, and this is pretty heavy pine here. Yes, it's pine, but sometimes these softwoods are harder to really cut than a hardwood. So it smells really nice, that's for sure. Very, very piney, sappy pine saw smell. But that's a pretty good, I mean, that's a really good cut there. You kind of get this rough sawn effect with this blade. And sometimes I build things and I use this rough cut like this to my advantage, making some trays and whatnot. Like I said, you're going to run this through the thickness planer anyways, so you know it's really going to true up. This piece had a lot of tension in it. It is not straight, as you can see. It's got quite the bow in it now. Now this piece still has the arc in it this way. And you can see there, I didn't pick the straightest piece. So here's the other advantage of having a system like this, or a saw set up to do this, is you don't have to use big thick stuff like this. You can use even thinner stock and slice that up even thinner. All right, this is a piece of ash here, and I've moved the fence over to the saw, closer to the blade. We're probably, I don't know, maybe about a 1/8 of an inch or so. I got to get some push sticks for this. All right, so I'm going to crank everything back up and let's resaw this piece of ash. So there you go. That's all the pieces put back together. And if you're going to, say, bookmark or book match something, that would not be hard to do at all. Just flip that out and put it back together. I believe that's the order those came out in. Certainly looks like it. And that's relatively thin right there. And then you could run that through a drum sander or something of that nature. And, you know, the blade doesn't wander through that. This is a sizable blade. And it just cuts consistent, you know. This is what I made this saw for, and it performs flawlessly. So now let me swap the blade over to a 1/4-inch blade, and we'll demo the circle jig that I have for it. That's going to take a little bit of setup because the blade position 4 1/2 needs to be in the right position so that the blade doesn't wander off when you're cutting a circle. So removing the blade is a little bit intricate. You have to remove the dust collection off the side here. There's 4 bolts because this top is actually, the tabletop is actually 2 pieces. So we're going to, of course, remove the insert. And then this has got to be rotated 90 degrees to line up with the slot. We'll put that off to the side. I will go over the alignment adjustments that this saw has. There's a tension knob at the top, and then there is a adjustment in the back that tilts the upper wheel in and out to get the blade or to help the blade be more aligned. So I've got the tension off of this right now, and the blade will just come right on out. And of course the slot is straight in. And there you go. And I'm going to fold this up real quick. If you don't know how to fold a bandsaw blade, I have a short on my channel for that, and real quickly you can just get that wound right up. I didn't do it very evenly, but just be careful when you're doing this, because if this thing comes, this thing is sharp. I mean, these points, these teeth are sharp. So if it were to unwind itself and it scrape your face, you're going to be bleeding. There's no doubt about it. Scrapes your arms or something like that. But now that we got it nice and even, it'll stay like that. So, alrighty. So we've got the blade off. We're going to move over to the 1/4-inch blade. All right, we want to make sure our teeth are pointed down. That on there. All right, so this knob on the top here is what actually pulls the wheel straight up. All right, I usually just roll it and make sure the blade is tracking properly. I'm just looking at the wheel here and making sure the blade is not running. It's going to run off at the back or the front. It's staying right in the middle. So let's go ahead and put this table back on. And I usually just line up this edge and this front edge. The screws are tapered, so they do kind of help just realign themselves. And that's all there is to that. So we put the insert back in here. Since I have the dust collection off still, I'll spin this around and show you the wheel adjustment on the back here. So you saw me moving this knob. This is actually what puts tension on the blade, and it's just basically a piece of 3/4 inch plywood that is not glued to the saw. It just bows and acts as a spring. But this box here, this adjustment knob, is what actually tilts the top wheel in and out, and that's what makes the blade stay in the middle of the wheel. And the wheels have a crown to them. You would think, well, why you would want it to have a dish, but believe it or not, the blade wants to go to the highest point. It likes that spot, and so you put a small crown on the wheels when I turn them to the proper size. And then I don't think I mentioned this, but this is actually an inner tube that is stretched around over the wheel. So I think these were 20 inch. You would think you'd get a 14, but you can't stretch it that far. I tried that, and yeah, you get about right here, because it's like a 12 inch diameter, even though it's on a 14 inch rim. So this is a 20. I believe it is a 20. So the bottom wheel has one on here as well, and there's weights, screws, and washers on the bottom wheel to make it balanced. And when you're running this saw, it really is really smooth. So again, it's like the dust collection. This has turned out to be a fantastic machine, even though it was shop built. All right, so this is the circle jig. It has a guide in it that will fit in this slot here and slide onto the tabletop. The adjustment here is actually a piece of T-track, and the knob is on the bottom, so it sticks out past the table so that you can make adjustments and slide this in and out. And the range on this is probably, well, I'll tell you what, let me show you the rest of this T-track and how this system right here works. So on the bottom here, there's a piece of solid maple that's in there, and then this is an old 3/16 drill bit, I think. Yeah, I think it's a 3/16, and that's our pivot point. So that's all just super glued in, and then this is wedged into the bottom. So then there's of course a bolt and a T-bolt on that with the knob. So so to kind of show you how this works, it was in here this way with a pin on that end, so that can come out. We're limited by how thick that is, so that's probably going to be around 9 inches or so. Yeah, about 9.5. But if you need to cut something, let's say bigger than that, then you put it in this way, and as small as that is, that's 13.5 inches from the blade to the pin. And then you can pull this out here, and that would be about a 45 inch circle. That's pretty darn good. Now I don't know if I would I don't know if I would do that or not, because you need something supporting this, obviously. But we have that capability. So I designed this because I needed some sort of adjustment, and so I put it out past the table, the knob out here, so that you can slide this in. Because when you start, you put your workpiece on here, and then you slide it into the blade. It stops here, and then you can spin your piece. All right, I have tweaked on this and I had to change to a 3/8 inch blade. That 1/4 inch blade is deflecting too much, so I had to swap to this one. It's been a long time since I've used this circle cutting jig. I hadn't had to cut any circles, and if I need to cut a circle now, I pretty much go to the scroll saw and cut the pattern out as close as possible. So, all right, so I got a piece of crappy scrap plywood, so let's cut a circle. So that does really well. That blade kind of leaves a rough surface on the side, but that is pretty close to round, I think, as you can get. I have to I think I'll write up something and keep notes on what blade I need to use and where this needs to be set, because you really need the teeth ahead of the pivot point, or else if it's behind it, as you turn the piece, the blade wants to go and follow the curve. So with it out front, it's cutting before you turn. So it took me a minute to remember how this should be set up, but there you go. Works really well. And if you need to change the diameter of your circle, you just run this in and out, and it's really easy to adjust it on the fly. Well, this is the review of my 14-inch DIY bandsaw that I built from some pre-drawn plans. I probably have, the motor is the most expensive thing on this build. I think I bought that from Amazon, and it was around, I want to say $230, something like that. Then of course, blades, there's several bearings involved, the inner tubes, glue, obviously, and of course the plywood. Now, when I built this back in 2020, started building it, that was prior to all the crazy pricing because of COVID and all that good stuff. And I think this is Riata pine or Redata pine. If you go into Home Depot and buy their select pine, that's what that is. It's some sort of pine from South America, and it doesn't have any knots in it at all, hardly. So this is that plywood. It's multi-layered, and it's really stable. It's almost Baltic birch-ish. It's not a hardwood, obviously, but it has multi-layers in it, and I usually build cabinet carcasses from this plywood. And so another, I think at the time, the sheets were like $29 a sheet. Now it's like $65 a sheet, which is ridiculous. This thing performs very well. It does exactly what I want it to do. Instead of paying $1,400 for a 14-inch bandsaw, I've got, like I said, around $450 somewhere south of that, you know, $430. And it works great for what I'm going to use it for. I really appreciate you stopping by the shop and checking out this video. If you would, please comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.